Let me first of all say thank you to the JDIC for putting on these public forums, and also thank you for continuously inviting the Bank of Jamaica to participate in these forums to give us an opportunity to communicate with the public. Can you hear me now? Okay, let me speak a little bit more directly into the mic. Let me also thank the wonderful people of the sovereign state of Montego Bay for having us here today. Thank you very much for your very warm hospitality. So today's presentation is titled Bank of Jamaica's Role in Regulating DTIs and Protecting Consumers. I'm going to first of all get into the presentation by giving a general background of what we do at the Bank of Jamaica so that everyone has a general feel of what we do. And then I'm going to segue into some of the consumer protection things that we do, particularly with regards to the code of conduct and some of the consumer protection initiatives that are contained in the Credit Reporting Act. So, the Bank of Jamaica, first of all, is a part of the regulatory environment in Jamaica. We regulate deposit-taking institutions, namely commercial banks, which we have 8, building societies, which we have 2, and merchant banks, which we only have 1 at the current time. We also regulate money services businesses, which include only two entities, which are remittance service providers and cambios. And we also regulate the credit reporting sector, which now comprises of 3 credit bureaus. As I said, if you look at the slide, you'll see that we have the 8 commercial banks. We also have the building societies and the merchant banks and the credit bureaus. I'm going to stop at the credit bureaus for a little bit. Because while most of us know who the commercial banks and the building societies are, not all of us may be very au fait with the credit bureaus that exist. And currently we have 3 credit bureaus in existence. One is Credit Info Jamaica Limited. The other one is CRIF Information Bureau Jamaica Limited, and the other one is Credit Information Systems Jamaica Limited. Now, for the remittance services, again, we have 6 entities, 6 companies that are authorized to do that type of business, and they have multiple branches throughout. And we also have, in terms of the cambios, we have 54. So there are a lot of them, 54 entities that are allowed, that are licensed to operate cambio business, and those 54 entities have a total of 133 outlets island-wide. So there are a lot of cambios, and there are a lot of cambio outlets throughout the country for good reasons as well. Now, why is it that the Bank of Jamaica supervises and regulates deposit-taking institutions? Well, the main reason is that we want to ensure the soundness and safety of the deposit-taking sector. In the Bank of Jamaica Act, Section 34AA, this supervisory department that engages in examination and review of the deposit-taking institutions is responsible for the promotion and safety and soundness of deposit-taking institutions and the deposit-taking system. It's very important because if the banks are not safe, then of course our way of life as we know it would dramatically change. We depend on the deposit-taking sector, the banks, the merchant banks, and the building societies to be able to do basic financial transactions, such as collecting our paychecks and also as for business people, paying people. So basic financial transactions. And we need that system to be very sound in order for Can you hear me still? Fantastic. So we need the deposit-taking sector to be sound in order for the economy to be able to grow in the way that we want it to grow and be as efficient as we want it to be. So how do we supervise these entities? We have a number of tools and a number of laws and regulations. We provide them with guidance as well, not just through the Bank of Jamaica Act and the Banking Services Act and the attendant subsidiary legislations, but we also provide them with guidance through standards and guidelines. So we have a Bank of Jamaica Act that was enacted in 1960, and we've had a number of amendments over the years. The latest one is in train now, which speaks to issues of central bank independence, and the last one before that was done in 2017. We also have a Banking Services Act that speaks to a number of more supervisory issues for the banks, and 8 attendant subsidiary legislations, including the Code of Conduct, which is the one that speaks specifically to issues of consumer protection. And we're going to get into that in detail a little bit later. So we also assess the quality of the DTI's activities and on-site examinations and off-site monitoring. I'm going to pop this mic out for a little bit, just so I can move around and engage a little bit more. So we also engage in conversations and in meetings and correspondence with the boards of these institutions. And we also are responsible for ensuring that the individuals who are in charge of managing these institutions are what we call fit and proper, meaning we want people who are of integrity, and their history and background indicates that, one, they have the competence from experience and also from academic competence, etc., to be able to efficiently and effectively run these institutions. But we also want to ensure that we don't have anyone with criminal backgrounds, etc., because you want to ensure that when you put your money with an institution, it is safe. So this is all part of ensuring the safety and soundness of the industry. And so I spoke a little bit earlier about the Bank of Jamaica Act 1960, the different amendments, the Banking Services Act, and the subsidiary legislations, including the Credit Reporting Act. Now, generally speaking, one of the ways in which we're able to supervise effectively is the power that we have. The Bank of Jamaica legislations have what you call teeth. And so those range from being able to issue warnings if institutions are not operating in the way that they should. And those warnings can be stepped up to requiring a board undertaking, meaning we meet with a board and we have an agreement with them that they must institute certain things by a certain time. And we can step it up further and issue directions. And in worst case scenarios, there is the potential for us to take temporary management or even revoke license. Now, in Jamaica, we have not had any need to go down to the last 2 levels. And that's because we have an industry that is one that listens to the central bank and its regulators. So with regards to consumer protection, the Banking Services Deposit-Taking Customer-Related Code of Conduct was passed in 2016. And that's important because it is one of the forays that the Bank of Jamaica is making into what is called market conduct supervision. Generally speaking, the Bank of Jamaica concerns itself with what is called prudential, which is really the nuts and bolts, the numbers, ensuring that people's capital adequacy, etc., are where they should be. But we found that conduct is also important. And so that's what the Code of Conduct speaks to. We also have elements of consumer protection clauses in the Credit Reporting Act that governs the 3 credit bureaus that we spoke of earlier. Now, quickly, the code was passed in 2016, but took effect August 2017. The banks were given a transition period with which to implement the new legislative requirements. It's enforceable and applicable to all deposit-taking institutions licensed under the Banking Services Act. And it governs certain aspects of relations with deposit-taking institutions, particularly disclosure issues, transparency, notification, access to information, and complaints resolution. The code establishes minimum standards. So you have to disclose information on fees, on charges, on terms of contracts, and changes to those things. You have to give notice for those things. You have to provide customers with access to their accounts in the different ways, whether by electronic or through branches. You have to establish mechanisms to be able to record all of the important information for customers. You have to inform them whenever you have any significant changes. And in the act itself, it speaks to a 45-day in advance. So if the bank is deciding that it is going to adjust fees and charges, it needs to give a notification of that 45 days in advance before it then effects the change. And these fees that are charged, of course, should be prominently displayed in the institutions. It also speaks to providing you information at a reasonable cost and providing you with monthly statements. They are therefore required under this legislation to establish adequate and effective structures and policies that ensure that they are in line with these instructions that speaks to how you disclose information, how you treat with the different disputes and complaints that individuals may have. And I'm going to slow down at this slide here, because with regards to the complaints resolution, I think not many people are aware of the different rights that they have with regards to complaint resolution. If you have an issue with something on your account at an institution, at a DTI, you are able to go and lodge a written complaint to the institution, because each institution now has to have not just an individual or individuals geared at addressing these, but a procedure, a written out procedure to handle complaints. And all have complied. So you can make a written complaint to the deposit-taking institution, and they must acknowledge that complaint within 5 days. So let me repeat, they must acknowledge your complaint in 5 days, within 5 days of receiving it. Through the process of the complaints, they have 45 days with which to come to some form of a resolution. Now, if after that 45 days, there is still a dispute, it hasn't been resolved amicably between the consumer and the deposit-taking institution, it is at that time that you as a consumer can now reach out to the Office of Consumer Complaints at the Bank of Jamaica by sending in a written complaint to our OCC email at customer.complaints@boj.org. So let me just walk you through it again. You have an issue with the institution, you lodge a written complaint. and they have 5 days with which to acknowledge. They have another 45 days with which to work things out with you. And if after that there is no resolution, then you come to the OCC and you make your complaint known there. So, in the situation where the OCC receives a complaint, we now, as the BOJ, have the authority to look at the issue and to take steps to resolve it, to review and then to make a decision whether or not we will, based on the information, decide that the institution needs to take some restitution with regards to the consumer, or whether the institution actually has done all that they should have done and no restitution is needed. Now, the supervisors in the Bank of Jamaica, we can issue a warning in such situations. And if the warning is not adhered to, a direction can be issued. So a warning is one stage, a direction is something that is more powerful. And an institution that does not comply with a direction is committing an offense, and there are ways in which to resolve that, which includes the courts. Now, in addition to the code of conduct, which speaks to how the consumer is able to maneuver its complaints through the DTIs, but also which governs how the DTIs are supposed to interact with consumers from the standpoint of disclosure and transparency. The Credit Reporting Act, which governs how the credit bureaus are dealt with, also have some consumer protection elements, and those are particularly found in sections 15 to 18. The reason why you need that for the credit bureau industry is that from time to time, a credit report may contain information that a consumer thinks is incorrect, and it may actually be incorrect for whatever reason. It may be incorrect because the information supplied by a credit information provider was incorrect, for example. And so in that situation, where the consumer disputes the accuracy of a report or information that has been provided by the credit bureau, they can now make their complaint known in writing. And that is important because it is your credit history and your credit report that is now a significant part of what you are assessed on when you go to an institution for a loan. So when you go for a housing loan or you go for a car loan, one of the things that you will get asked now is you will be asked by the institution if they can pull your credit report from one of the 3 credit bureaus. And the institutions are doing this because what they want to do is they want to be able to differentiate between somebody who has a good credit report indicating that they are a good credit risk, as opposed to somebody who has a bad credit report indicating that they may not necessarily be such a good credit risk to take. And in the future, what you may find is persons with good credit scores getting lower interest rates and persons with bad credit scores getting higher interest rates. Just another caveat, within all the credit bureaus, you as a consumer have the right to 1 free credit report per year. Now, if there is no resolution to the dispute, you complain in writing to the credit bureau, and they say, well, hey, the information that we have, we believe that it's correct, and you're not able to resolve it. At that time, you can make a written complaint to the supervisor. So the first time you have an issue with the accuracy of your report, you complain to the credit bureau. That's the current system. And if it is not resolved there, then you come to the supervisor. Now, if after you come to the supervisor, you're still not happy with how it went, then there is also an appeals tribunal, which is constituted by the Ministry of Finance, and you can appeal whatever decision is made by the supervisor there. And then after that, they'll make a decision, and once the decision is made there, then the supervisor carries out the effect of that particular decision. Just an aside, if even at that stage you're not comfortable with the decision, then it will then have to go to the courts. So the benefits of this foray into consumer protection are varied, because what it does is it promotes transparency. It promotes proper disclosure to customers. It requires both the deposit-taking institutions and the credit bureaus to develop internal processes for handling customer complaints and redress mechanisms. And it facilitates more and better financial, or should I say, greater inclusion in financial matters. And so we are very cognizant of the fact that consumers have to feel that they are protected as a part of ensuring the safety and stability of the overall deposit-taking sector. So in conclusion, the Bank of Jamaica, we supervise DTIs, credit bureaus, money service businesses, and the credit bureaus. And that supervision is aimed at safety and soundness. That supervision is conducted using a number of laws that are in existence, but also guidelines that we will put out from time to time as well. And for consumers, for the consumer protection parts of the legislations, which are the Code of Conduct in particular, and the relevant sections of the CRA, customers have this avenue. A lot of customers don't know that they have this avenue. You have this avenue whenever you have a dispute. And just to end by saying that if after your engagement with the institutions there is no resolution, you can send a written complaint to the Bank of Jamaica at customer.complaints@boj.org.jm or call the direct hotline at 932-4116. That's 876-932-4116. Our Office of Consumer Complaints head is actually here at the Bank of Jamaica booth at the back. And so if you're interested in learning a little bit more about what we do, you can come and see us. Thank you very much for your time.